One of the good things to emerge from the COVID pandemic is the notion that people would like and can successfully achieve more flexible work arrangements. One idea getting increasing consideration is the 4-day work week. Butila Karpoche is the NDP member for Parkdale High Park, and she joins us now for more on that. Nice to have you here.
Nice to be back here,
You and I
Steve.
have done an interview before, but it was in your office. Have you been here before?
Right. Yes, class of 2018.
Yes.
New MPPs.
Oh,
yes.
that's right. Okay, thank you. Well, welcome back in that case. You can tell my memory is a little fuzzy these days. You have pitched something called Bill 55, the 4-Day Work Week Act. What problem is that bill trying to solve?
So with this bill, Steve, I am asking the question, is the current model that we have now, which is a 5-day, 40-hour work week, still the best model for us now and moving forward? Or should we explore a 4-day work week? Which is why this bill, if passed, would establish a 4-day work week commission in Ontario that would study it and make recommendations to have a pilot in Ontario.
Where would the pilot program be?
Well, that would depend on the commission. I have intentionally not made it very prescriptive because I want to give the commission the flexibility to determine the scope of the pilot, how large, which workers, which sectors. My hope is that it is as broad as possible so that we're able to generalize the results and see if it works, how it might be possible to scale something like that up.
Do you have a view as to who should be on the commission?
I hope that it would represent a broad sector of workers, because again, we want to be able to get the input of people in many different parts of Ontario and many different workers and jobs. But I would also expect that the commission would be composed of people, who understand employment standard issues and laws.
Would you want employers on the commission as well?
Yes.
Everybody?
Everybody. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Have you come to a conclusion yourself as to whether you think the 4-day work week is the way to go?
It's certainly a question that, has come up quite a lot. I think that the number of hours worked in a day, in a week, has been a topic of conversation for a while, but it has gained traction during the pandemic. It has come to greater focus, and there is a greater need and a want from people to have more work-life balance, more time for family and other responsibilities outside of the workplace, more time for community involvement and volunteer work. So I think that, seeing many jurisdictions implement pilot programs and see that productivity, economic productivity, has not taken a dip, has not been negatively impacted, but we have, having greater well-being, workplace morale, mental health, less burnout, all of these benefits for workers. My bias is tells me, again, this is really based on the evidence that is out there already and pilot projects being successful. And jurisdictions like Iceland making it permanent. 90% of the Icelandic workforce has now a reduced work week. So, all of this tells me that there is something there, and Ontario should explore it at the very least.
Have you discussed this with employer groups yourself?
No, because I have, again, I'm leaving that to the commission. The purpose really is for the commission to do that work and to make recommendations as to how the pilot program will be run. I have intentionally kept that distance because I didn't want to make it prescriptive, and I want as broad a perspective, as inclusive a perspective, as wide as possible to be able to give that input for the pilot project.
Okay, I take your point on that, but of course, for this bill to become law, you presumably have to negotiate with somebody on the government side because they're going to have to take it up.
Yeah.
Have you done that?
Well, this is the second time that I have tabled the bill. It is my hope that, this is something that the government can support. Again, this bill is simply trying to get a pilot program going. And again, because we have seen that it has worked in other jurisdictions, At the very least, why should Ontario be behind the ball? Why can't we also, try it out and see if it is something that can be successful in Ontario?
You know, one of the things governments, I've seen them do over the years, is if they see a private member's bill from an opposition member that they like, they'll just steal the idea and pass it themselves. Would you be okay with that?
Absolutely. So one of the reasons, I'm in the opposition, Steve, but part of my job is to bring forward ideas and table bills as a legislator, because we also want to let the government have an idea of the kinds of things that we could be working on. And if there's any bill, not just the 4-day work week, any bill of mine that the government has an interest in, I say, please go for it.
Normally, the Ten Commandments say thou shalt not steal, but in this case, you don't mind.
No, it's there for, I've made it available for the government.
Gotcha. Okay. That's Butila Karpoche, the NDP member for Parkdale High Park, on the 4-day work week. We thank you for coming into TVO tonight.
Thank you, Steve.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.